Well, hello again to all the beautiful teachers around the world. It's Tim Topham here, and that fabulous other person on the screen is Nicola Canton. And we're here for day 2 of the 5-day piano pivot. And thanks heaps for joining us again. This has been a fantastic experience for both for us and for all of you who have been joining us, whether it's live or you've been catching the replays. Great to have you along. Now, if you've just stumbled across this and you're wondering what on earth a piano pivot is all about, then what we're in the middle of is a 5-day challenge to plan and organise your studio for 2018. And it doesn't matter if you're just joining us for the first time today, that's totally cool, because all the replays are available both inside this community and also on my website. And if you're registered at pianopivot.com, then you should be able to grab the emails that I'm sending you each time we go live, and there's a replay schedule link there. So there's one page on my website that just has all the videos, so you could just watch them really, really easily in one place if that suits you. And remember too, this is open and welcome to all instrumental teachers, vocalists. It doesn't just refer to piano teachers, despite the name. It just happens that we're both piano teachers, and I thought it was a kind of cool thing to call it. So anyway, great to have you along. If you're joining us live, feel free to say hi again in the chat. Always great to see who's on the call. And I think before we start today and talk about today's focus, which is your students, I thought it'd be fun to just go through some of the feedback and comments that we were getting yesterday, Nicola. So did you want to start with some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, so I've been looking through the photos that people have been uploading, which has been really fun to get to see them actually filling in the workbook that we created. So I picked out a few that I thought were really interesting from the goals that they're setting for themselves. Lisa was setting a goal for sleep, and I thought she did really a great job of breaking it down month by month. So she had, in month 1 in January, she had no screens by 9:30. And then in month 2, she had in bed by 10:30. And then month 3, her ultimate goal was getting into bed by 10 and be reading at that stage and do a bit of reading. So it's a simple goal, but it's just breaking it down so that it's really achievable. She only has one job to do in January, and I thought that was awesome. Also, Linda was talking about work-life balance, and she shared that she's going to be playing guitar or violin 5 days a week. Now, I don't know if they're both in primary teaching instruments or not, but I don't think that they actually are. And I just think it's wonderful to set those practice goals, just a minimum of 5 days a week. Maybe some weeks that'll only be 5 minutes at a time, but making that time almost every day of the week, like we expect our students to do, I think is so important. And the final one I wanted to share was Joanne, who Joanne Snowden had set a goal for fitness, and she wants to get into Nordic walking. So she said she wants to do 1 walk per week in January, then 2 per week in February, and then in March is when she's going to add in Pilates every single week. So I thought it was just great seeing how people were breaking it down and making it make sense for the first quarter to build up to where they wanted to be.
Yeah, and of course, for those who might have missed yesterday's, we're talking about this chart here, which literally has the steps that you can take to achieve the goal. So you kind of set the goal, choose your topic, set the goal, and then decide on your steps towards it on the way through. And interestingly, someone else I was just reading today was talking about their goal just to drink more water, drink a litre of water a day. And she'd broken it down to buy a really nice water bottle. That was the first month's goal.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
I'm gonna refill it, and then start drinking whatever it was. I thought, great. It makes such a difference if you can break up your goals into these smaller chunks. I also wanted to read a quote that I heard, and I'm going to refer back to this on the business day and perhaps the wrap-up day, because I think it is so important. It's about the importance and the value of writing down goals. So let me read this to you. And if anyone knows where this came from, then let me know that too, because I'm not sure who said this, but it says this: people that write down goals are 39% more likely to achieve them than others who don't write them down. But those who write their goals and report their progress to a friend or coach are, get this, 76% more likely to achieve their goals. And for me, this is the power of a community, like the community that we're in now, and the reason why we're really encouraging you to share your goals. And like the Inner Circle, and there's probably other communities that we're all in, music teachers associations and things. If there's a way that you can meet a mentor or a friend and hold each other accountable to achieving these goals, perhaps someone else who's on the pivot, then it's just going to be a superstar progress month for you. Okay, well, I think we'll get into. I was going to read just a couple of comments that I saw from yesterday too. Yeah. So April said, "This is like a New Year's resolution in advance. Decluttering has been an ongoing process of mine since September, but has stopped a bit. It needs to continue, especially after the holidays. And interestingly enough, we're going to be talking a little bit about decluttering on Thursday. I think it is your Wednesday, Nicola." The less things to take care of, our minds can be more clear. And she was also talking about meal planning and trying to get to that stage where she doesn't have to worry about what to cook for the kids every single day, but she's actually going to try a month of meal planning. Now, that's pretty extraordinary. If you can do it, I'll be really
impressed. You can do it all
in
one go. It might work.
It might work, yeah. And then just shop every week. That's a great plan. Yeah. It reminds me of Steve Jobs, and I think Mark Zuckerberg were well known for wearing the same clothes every single day.
Yeah.
And they said that they did that because they wanted one less decision to have to make every day. I get it. This kind of thing makes sense. If you can plan ahead, it's great. So Vanessa Adams, she said, lately I hardly touch the piano or any other instrument except during lessons. So personal music is a spot that needs a lot of work. And Nicola, I think you probably saw quite a few people were saying that. Trying to get back into their own practice is a big one.
It's so easy to drop that, isn't it?
Yeah. Jolene, she had what I would call a quick win, because any one of us can do this today. My goal is to stand more during lessons. That's a simple change. Your kids might find it a bit weird if you've always sat down, but that's a great little quick win. And Emily was also talking about the work-life balance, and she was asking, how do you gauge work-life balance? And so my thinking on that, and I've left a comment for her, was, it's very specific to individuals, but if you're getting to that place where you're finding you're not doing any other hobbies, you're not spending time with your family or friends, you're not getting out for meals or spending time on the weekends doing things that you love that aren't work or music, then that might be a time when you could rethink things. But otherwise, maybe it's okay. Like we don't all have to have an issue with that. What do you think, Nicola?
I think a good sign for me that I've made myself too busy, which I very rarely let myself do, but if I do, I'll find myself snapping at even just a tiny bit at someone, a student, a parent, or whatever, that when I think about it later, actually, it really wasn't that big a deal. If I'm getting into those kinds of moods, I've probably overdone it a little bit. So I think that's another sign that maybe the work-life balance isn't in order and you need to take on some stuff outside of work.
I can't personally imagine you ever being snappy, Nicola.
My snaps are they're very mild, but I feel them. So I know.
Great to see. We've got lots of people saying hello. Belinda, of course, Patty, Sandy, Lowe, Luann. Hello, Luann.
Tim, do you realize Sandy's in Perth and it's 5 a.m.?
Oh, you made it. Yes.
Amazing.
Good on you. I'm very impressed. You said you were going to get up at 4:45. So, wow, I better make today extra good. Ruthie's here. Ken Lim, who's been on each call as well. So lots of people. Yeah. I can't say hi to you all, but thank you for joining us today. So let's get into it. The goal for today is actually to brainstorm and visualize what your ideal student looks like in the future so that we can work out how to turn that vision into reality through our teaching, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, okay? So today is about lots of ideas and brainstorming. So as I mentioned at the end of yesterday's call, our very first pre-launch day was a really big, wide brainstorm. Yesterday we came in close to do some nitty-gritty detail. Today we're going to expand out again and really brainstorm around this great page in the workbook, which we're going to get to later. Don't start filling this in just yet, okay, because I want to give you a little bit of background. What I think it's important to remember is that your goals determine your teaching activities and the content of your lesson. So I'll say that again. The goals for your student should determine your teaching activities and the content of your lessons. And so often, it's really easy for us as piano teachers to just teach the things that we were taught, or continue to teach in the way that we've always taught without thinking so much about those goals. So that's what today is designed to do. It's designed to pivot us away from just doing it the same old way to, well, actually, this is the direction I really want to go in. So I think it's best to not teach too much more, definitely not into next year, until you've worked out this intention. It's a little bit like a vision or a mission, but I don't want to use the idea of a vision statement or a mission statement because it's just a scary business kind of term. We're not going to create that. Instead, we're going to do this much more graphical and fun idea here, and then we'll narrow things down tomorrow, okay? So I wrote an article about philosophy and choosing your goals, and one of the quotes that I put in there was this. It said, "Our ways of teaching, the things we prioritize and emphasize in lessons, are an outward reflection of our piano teaching philosophy." The things we prioritize and emphasize in our lessons are an outward reflection of a piano teaching philosophy. So before we start filling out these sheets, I thought it's kind of instructive to think about the difference between us and classroom teachers, for example. And I don't know if anyone else in the group has taught classroom. I think that there has been a few. Some in fact still are doing group classroom and things. One of the big differences between being a classroom teacher and an instrumental private piano teacher is that we don't have a curriculum to follow. There is no one telling us what we have to do. And this is both a blessing and a bit of a curse, because it's actually really easy when you're told, well, after week 4, you're teaching maths and this is what the kids need to be tested on, so go and teach that. And then after the next 4 weeks, this is what happens. For us, not only are we teaching one-on-one, so we can be very personalized, but 2, no one is there to tell us what we have to do. And so that gives us this great freedom, of course, to be able to do whatever we want. But we've got to think about what that is. Okay, so that's what today's about. So we're going to talk about this idea of a musical student, what a musical student will look like in my studio in the future. I talked about in the blog post that I wrote, having a studio recital at school. I just had a studio recital when I wrote the article about philosophy. And one of the things that became really clear to me was when you've got students on stage or performing in some kind of way, those people, those students of yours, are actually demonstrating what musical is to you in your teaching, because they are an outward reflection of the kinds of things that you put emphasis on. So I'll just read out, there's just a couple of little things here. It was magic to hear my students play, and I know that a number of them were working on their own progressions, motifs, melodies, and improvisation. And so I knew that the definition of a musical student of Tim Topham was actually on display in these students. And it was a little bit different from the students who performed notated works. Of course, I was proud of everyone, and everyone has different goals in their studio, and students, of course, have their own goals. You can't force everyone to suddenly be a composer. There's no point in that. But there's an approach, I guess, that I was hoping would be on show for everyone to see. Oh, I can see what Tim's trying to achieve here. Whether they're playing Beethoven or they're composing their own work, this is the goal that he's got. So what would it sound like, and this is the question that I asked at the end of yesterday's video, what would it sound like if you saw your student in the future performing or playing with a group or doing something engaged in music? What would just melt your heart to see them doing? Would it be that they're singing at the front of their church, or they're playing piano and singing, busking outside the supermarket, or are they in a band together, or indeed are they a concert pianist on the stage, full outfit, 9-foot grand, playing amazingly difficult repertoire? What is that student doing, and what would it just make you, almost emotional to see and be so proud of? That's the question that we're going to be answering today. So it was interesting too. Yesterday, Jeff Davison, who may be on the call, I haven't seen if Jeff's on today, said, thinking of ahead to tomorrow's topic, which is today, he said, I've been going through my list of current students and making a note of one thing that makes them the ideal student for me. For some, it's a challenge. For others, it's easy. Tim's suggestion to look into the future actually inspired me to look backwards. So I loved this. Thank you so much for sharing this, Jeff. Which students that I have taught over the years have been my ideal students looking backwards? So this could be, you could look either direction here. You could have that visualization of the future, or indeed you could look back and go, actually, that kid, that was what I really want to do. What do you think, Nicola? Does this seem to make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to look into the future. But, because none of them would be grown up yet.
Most of your guys are little young ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, I start them as preschoolers and I'm not that old, so like, I can't be grown up. But yeah, I mean, my dream is that they're the person at the party who sees a piano and goes, oh, let's all sing whatever is popular at the time or popular with them, and they accompany them. I think that's my dream, that I'd love to be a fly on the wall for, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I remember, looking back when I was 14-ish, I remember that we used to, as a family, all go around to another family's house for Christmas Eve dinner. I can still picture it. And they would have 20 people or something around a table. It was huge. It was huge. And what would happen after dinner? We'd all sing carols. And who would play for the carols? Tim would play. And I think I did it for about 4 years, from about age 10. I don't know how I even touched the pedals. I was doing this every year, and it was just brilliant. And I was thinking, if I was looking at me and I was my student, that's a bit confusing, but do you get what I mean? Yeah. I'd be going, yeah, that's so cool that he can do that. So that's what I'm getting at, I think.
That's awesome. I had a mother of a student recently tell me that they went on holidays down to the countryside in Ireland, and they were in a hotel that had a piano in the lobby, and her two girls went straight up to the piano during breakfast and just played every piece that they could play from memory. And they started a whole trend. So every kid started getting up then at breakfast and going up to this piano and playing for everyone, and they had music for the whole breakfast time. I just thought that was amazing.
That's cool. I'm sure there would be some people that might not have enjoyed it. But then again, you know what? Seeing kids just have fun. Hotel. Yeah. And seeing kids have fun playing music, I think is just, it's so precious and priceless, isn't it? I'm just checking through the comments too. There's quite a few classroom teachers here, so hopefully you'll definitely get what I was saying there. David Barton, subject of my PhD. I knew you were doing a PhD. I didn't know what the topic was. How do you decide what to teach if no one tells you what to do? You're kidding me. That is brilliant. Okay, well, you've got to share some ideas with us later on. That's absolutely brilliant. So what I wanted to mention was just give you 2 examples of how this could play out and how it could affect your teaching. So here's example number 1. So this could be teacher number 1. If being a musical student to you, if this sounds like you, if that's about students performing traditional repertoire from memory with beautiful stylistic interpretation, with amazing phrasing, melodic contour, and a beautiful stage presence, and someone that knows how to bow before they run off stage, then your teaching will focus on probably reading, performing, interpreting, perhaps competitions, exams, festivals, and those kinds of things. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Teacher 2, perhaps your musical student is one who can confidently play music in any situation, play something on the spot for their friends, accompany a singer or play in a band, play while everyone sings happy birthday or sings carols like I mentioned, or sight read for their next church service when the organist is sick. Then your philosophy and your teaching will likely be really different to teacher number 1. So that's what I'm getting at. And they're quite polar opposites, of course, and I think we're all going to sit somewhere in the middle. So I think it's time to actually grab out your dream student sheet and let's actually dive in a little bit. So you can see there, so this is the page that I'm on. And you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes. So what I'd like to do is, with you guys now, is do some brainstorming of kind of areas that we can start filling in. And so, Nicola, I'm going to ask you for a couple in a second, just to give you a little bit of warning.
Okay.
And what I'd like people to do is, in the comments, if you can write some topic areas of musicality for your student. So, for example, one might be reading. Okay, so let's actually put one of those in the box. I'll put reading over here. It doesn't really matter exactly where it is. And what kind of skills would your ideal student have under reading? Is it that they need to spend weeks and weeks learning something before they can play it? Or is, in fact, sight reading something that you really prioritize and get them to do every single lesson, no matter how much they cry and hate it, because you know how important sight reading is? So perhaps under reading, you could write something that relates to reading there for you. One other one from me before I hand over to Nicola for a couple of her ideas would be singing. And singing isn't one thing, is something that we don't always talk about too much in piano. But if you've been listening to me for any length of time, and I know Nicola's onto this as well, I've been encouraging singing more and more and more in the last few years, and it has a huge impact in students' ability to play. So singing, for me, it's important that students can sing, and not just sing, but play some chords and hopefully sing along. That's one for me. I really like to be able to do that. Yeah. I remember doing it as a kid. It was a great show-off trick, and no one knew how you were doing it, but it's actually not that hard when you work on it. Nicola, have you got a couple of ideas? And please pop some comments. We'll get to some comments as well from you as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a big topic. I guess I'd put oral skill. I always say this wrong because for some reason we say aural in Ireland. Anyway, oral, I think is the correct way to say that word.
That would be how I say it,
yeah. Yeah, oral skills would be definitely one area that I like to cover, although I would put that together with singing a little bit. Certainly improvising, being able to sit down and play just for the fun of it and not have to have music in front of you. It's something I always want for my students because it's something that I didn't have at all until way, way, way too late. What else? Yeah, to be able to understand music they're listening to as well. That's sort of oral skills, but in a different way, like the actual just music on the radio, like why does that sound cool? Why do I like the sound of that bit? Why does that sound like the end? They should be able to understand those things just innately built into their musical training, which I don't think they often can if they only read music or if they go through our exam system or that kind of thing.
And that comes back to playing by ear. And I can see that Rebecca, good to see you, Rebecca. That's another name that I'm very familiar with. Rebecca Singerman Knight says playing by ear and harmonizing would be on her sheet. And I would agree with Nicola that idea for me of a student being able to hear music that they like and be curious about why they like it and be able to pull it apart by playing it. I would just, for my students to be able to do that, and I know some of them do that, which is really cool, that would be a musical student for me in a few years. Having repertoire to sit and play in public whenever they want. So that's from Joanne. That's fantastic. So, Joanne, that's going to mean that perhaps memorizing things is a little bit more important for you, which is great. Ken says analytical skills, which we've just kind of mentioned too. Yeah? That idea of being able to analyze music. How is it constructed? Why does it sound like this? So keep these comments coming, everyone. This is great. So you're just going to put each of these topics in a different box on this sheet. That's the goal. You don't have to fill every box in, but feel free to write as much or as little as you want in these kind of topic areas. So perhaps improvising, singing, oral, playing by ear, composing could be another one. Performing, the ability for students to perform confidently and not run away and hide under chairs, which is what I did when I was first asked to perform piano. My parents talk about it all the time. It was so embarrassing for them. I was at my piano teacher's first concert, and I was a bolshy. I don't know if you guys use that word. I was a real pain, and I would not play, and I ran and hid under the chairs of the other people watching.
Um, dear.
Awful.
I bet they embarrassed you with the story for years to come in retribution.
They have continued to do that.
Another skill that people might want to consider as well is ensemble skills, so being able to play well with others. That's something as well that I don't think every piano study, every piano study actually prepares students to do. It's much more common in other instruments. So getting students together to play more often, if you want them to be able to play in bands and play well with others and listen properly to other musicians.
I'm interested in Hetty has taken a slightly different approach. Dream student equals someone who is coachable. And she tells a story of moving regularly, and she's managed to retain an adult and a 15-year-old who are now more advanced. So that's a really hard one to try and envision in the future. It's a hard one to know how to get to that point.
But I
guess, because people come and go. It doesn't matter how good your teaching is or how much they're enjoying it. Sometimes kids move on. But I guess the one thing we can do is try and engage them and motivate them as much as possible. And for me, that's about helping them with their music as well as what we think they should be doing too.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Sarah just said there, I think my ultimate dream would be a pianist for musical theatre auditions. So that's a really specific goal for students.
Well, I tell you what, I've done that job for many years, and you have to be a really good player and sight reader to be able to do that, and you've got to have a good chord knowledge. I think that's a fantastic goal. That's a challenge to get students to that level, though, I've got to say. Ken says, it's funny how Tim is bringing up how our students are an outward reflection of us. More than 10 years ago, I had a student performing in a concert. The parent came back to tell me her child looked exactly like me when I was playing the piano, the way I played the piano. So there you go. Well, Ken, definitely something's rubbing off on your students. So great. Keep these comments coming in, everyone. And what have I got? There's a couple of other ones here. I was also talking about group performing. I've got sitting down and playing with no music. That's a big one for me, that students can just sit down and make something up. So as we'll go into tomorrow in teaching, one of the things I love doing with students at the start of a lesson is saying, right, play me something. And they've just got to make something up. And if they freak out, then I give them a little bit of guidance. But most of them are getting kind of used to it now, so they know, okay, well, I'll think about it.
That's what I would have done, though.
Yeah.
I would have been so scared of you. I just would have freaked out as a child.
A few tricks, and obviously I build them up. It's such a great skill. Yeah. Playing in a band, accompanying Christmas songs, playing duets with their children in the future. That'd be kind of cool. Rhythm could be another topic. Would you like them to be really good at rhythm and understanding rhythm? Lead sheet playing. These are all kind of topics. Self-reflection, David said, ensemble skills. Reading, can sight read easy pieces. Technical, play with a good hand position. We haven't talked about techniques so much. Strength and control. So I want everyone to keep thinking, wow, this, my goodness, I can barely keep up here. Accompaniment skills, chords and singing. Luann is preparing students to substitute for her at church. I mean, any of that kind of accompanying skill is so good for students. And to throw them in the deep end a little bit, just brilliant.
Good for sight reading and harmony skills, definitely, I think.
Yeah, there's been a few people talking about harmony too. And Joey's saying improv, a good topic. I thought you'd say that, Joey.
Yeah. There's a few people saying, though, that they want it all, Tim. They want both your Teacher 1 and your Teacher 2 profile. So what do you suggest they do if they want to be everyone?
Well, tomorrow we're actually going to be choosing our top 3 to 5 of these skills. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where reading and technique comes into this, because a lot of the skills we're talking about are skills that are a little bit perhaps outside the traditional realm of classical teaching, which is great, and that's what we want to get teachers thinking about. But there's a lot to be said, obviously, for teaching good technique and reading, and I do that, and Nicola does that. We all do that. So I'll talk tomorrow about where that comes into this framework of the ideal student and what they're able to do. But I don't want to talk about that just now. For now, I just want you to brainstorm all these ideas, because we'll refine it a little bit more tomorrow and choose just some of those things that we really are must-haves for our students down the track.
There's a few people as well mentioning good thinking skills, like grit and good practicing skills that they can apply to the rest of their life. I think that's a really interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Effective practice skills, and the importance, therefore, of teaching how to practice effectively in your lessons. Nicola's got a whole book about that. So, yeah, that's a really good one. Read and play by ear with equal facility. That's a great summary of what we're all trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously different students will have different needs and approaches. I mean, some... so I should say this too, when it comes to that teacher 1 and teacher 2 that I discussed before, there'll be some students in your studio who will love nothing more than high-level classical performing, and they'll be brilliant at it, they'll love it, and they'll do it forever. But I guess what we need to think about is that that approach isn't going to probably work for everyone, and it's probably affecting a smaller and smaller batch every year of students. And so that's why we have to, while we're making sure our teaching suits all our different students, having a bigger approach that says, you know what, even those guys that just love the classical performing, they should be able to play Happy Birthday, and they should be able to just sit down and play something, because that's an important skill, if that is an important skill in your studio. Does that make sense, Nicola?
Yeah, definitely. It's about being more inclusive in a way, because I feel like we came through that and we were sort of lucky to have managed to, suit that classical system and make it all the way through, and then find how to play Happy Birthday and improvise and all that stuff on top of that. But developing a system that's actually more inclusive of all different types of students, including the ones who are maybe like us, who would thrive in that classical system, but also all the other students.
So we'll start, I think we'll start wrapping things up, because we're just on the half hour and we're trying to keep these to about half hour. So what I'd like you to do is, obviously, if you haven't started, then start filling in that sheet. If it's got scribbles all over it, that's cool. Colours, is it Catherine? Who's the person that uses all the colours?
Yeah, that's Catherine.
She's a superstar. I'm looking forward to seeing her sheet. We'd love you to, as we've been doing these last few days, if you're happy to photograph this and share it to the group, that would be awesome. We would love to see it. You can even colour in Nicola's superstar student.
Yeah,
done a great job.
Really fun.
Yeah, highlight. That's right. Extra points for you who do that. So this idea and all of our ideas are designed to simmer for a little while in your head. So whatever you put on there, you don't have to decide. Even tomorrow when we start refining, things will change. And over the course of the next few months, you might come and go, actually, no, that's not so important to me. Something else is. And then you can reshuffle. That's totally cool. So we're not setting things in concrete for you today, I guess is what I'm saying. Great to see, by the way. Thank you for the hearts and the smiley faces and things. We had a little bit of a confetti of those coming up last time. I can see some coming up now. So thank you. Always a pleasure to see those. And you're welcome to push any of those little buttons as much as you want.
Always appreciated.
Keep those comments coming. We'll have a look through them during the day, of course, and I hope that's been a helpful activity. I've been talking about this concept of philosophy and envisioning your future student for most of this year, so that's why I'm so happy to have been able to do it with a core of you guys who are going to make real change by doing this. So have a think about those things. We'll refine it a little bit tomorrow, and then we'll be able to work out a little bit more about what we're going to actually teach and where we might need some help to upskill ourselves. Wow, I'm seeing all the thumbs up and hearts. Thanks, guys. You rock. Anything else we need to cover before we wrap up, Nicola?
I think we're good. The only thing I thought you were missing was the confetti, but you got it. So
I got the confetti. Look, it's going crazy. Love it. Thanks so much, everyone. And really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Feel free to share this with other people and get them into the community if they're interested. And all the best. Looking forward to seeing your dream student pictures. Colourful. All right, everyone. See you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.